one of those familiar times where I've been meaning to record for several days, but it just hasn't happened. I find I'd prefer to record a bit more regularly because it's hard. It's hard to kind of remember things that have happened or things that will be useful to kind of reflect upon and talk through. It's hard to do it all in one go. I guess to sum up the last week or two, I've been isolating myself from people. Usually I see on a kind of semi-regular basis. I kind of see a couple of family members, and I try my best to stay in touch with a couple of friends as well. But I got to a point I was just feeling very, very drained and unwell, and it's usually sometimes out of guilt or some awareness of trying to keep up a healthy habit of social interaction. I would kind of keep in touch with people. Even that would be, spaced out sometimes. But I reached a point where I just felt so unwell that I wasn't even able to tap into that, or that didn't even arise in me. So I guess you reach a certain level of this and go, I guess, with physical and mental health, where the more the health, sort of the level of health goes down, the less things you're able to hold on to and think about, or have the energy to. You sometimes don't even have the energy to feel guilty. It can be like that. So it's been mixed, to be fair. One thing to mention before I forget is that I've stopped drinking, largely I've stopped drinking caffeine. I watched a few videos of people who've done the same, and I mostly did it out of sort of desperation to help with my sleep, because my sleep is still not great, and I'm aware that of the long-term damage it's and even the short-term it's having on my mental health. So and just to talk about that briefly, it wasn't difficult to give up. I do I guess it's a bit more difficult than I thought it would be, but it wasn't the case where I knew it would be a huge struggle. Part of me misses having a coffee in the morning. But on the flip side is I'm feeling less anxious, I think, and I think my energy is more level versus the spikes of caffeine. And there's positives from the caffeine as well, like I'd get a burst of energy in this, but I think I'm feeling less of a spiky energy where it's not this come down from the caffeine where I suddenly feel exhausted. I still, of course, feel tired and fatigued and mentally exhausted, but it's more of a mellow sort of level energy, which is, I think it's good for me. I think I've noticed I'm able to be a touch more resilient in doing things with my energy at this level. So that's good. And of course there's the option for having like decaf coffee, which I'm kind of still working things out, but I met a family member on Sunday, and we went out, and drinking decaf was a good option just to kind of be social, meeting someone outside, so that's a good option. And if I want to have it here at home as well, then I can I can do that. But for the time being, I'm thinking of just leaving coffee just to have on when I'm outside and only have decaf. Perhaps that might keep things simple, and just even a few milligrams of caffeine, it all kind of adds up. So maybe I can just drink that sparingly when I'm in a social setting. That could be a good idea. So far I'm not sure if it's helped my sleep. Maybe it's helped it on some level that I'm just not aware of, and maybe I've got to be a bit patient as well. Maybe maybe it'll take weeks or months for sleep to improve. It's only been 5-6 days, maybe a week. I've not been drinking regular sort of caffeine or coffee, and I've not been eating chocolate as well for two reasons. I think the pre-diabetic one mostly, but also I'm aware that I forget that there's caffeine in chocolate. It's quite a good dose of caffeine, which I just wasn't ever really aware of. So that's something I've stopped as well. So even though I've had a week of sort of isolation, sometimes call it hibernation, just not seeing or speaking to anyone really, just having that week completely on my own. I've been getting into a tiny bit of a routine or a regularity of activities might be better, where I've kind of been staying at home more, but I've been getting out to the park, some days twice a day, most days just like in a morning walk. So that's been positive. And then when I came back, I've been working on finishing a novel that I've been working on for this one for a few years. So I was just kind of, that gave me the momentum, I think I mentioned before, just to get over that finish line of editing, which I have done. And I'm just, for the last few days, I've been working on the submission material, which is just been quite stressful for me to do, quite taxing on my mind. And so I've been doing that, and I've been doing a little bit of reading as well, which is always challenging. Finding made a chicory coffee drink here, so I'll make sure I don't forget to drink. I struggle with reading, just finding something that holds my interest. And I'm reading, I've got it here actually, this will probably go back to front on the camera, I'd imagine. It's called Follow Her Home by Steph Char. And I came across this book, I can't remember if I've said this before, but I came across this book when I was watching an interview from Michael Connolly. He's an author that I've enjoyed reading for a long time, and probably the only author that I'm kind of connect, who I'm able to read without kind of a go-to author when a new book comes out, for example. And this book I'm not sure about. It's written in a really, really good way. I'm just not sure how much I connect with some parts of the story. So it's difficult trying to find books, and sometimes this goes with movies as well, that I can get what I need from them in terms of entertainment or escapism or help as well, inspiration from the stories. So I've been mixing reading in as well with going on walks, doing a little bit of writing, and I've tried to do it in a loose way. So I found perhaps not setting time of, okay, from this time to that time each day I'm going to do this, or even on the same day to commit to a time. It just feels it's already adding pressure and stress. So I just kind of keep the notion of that, doing that activity for however long I'm able to or want to. And some days I do it like a burst of writing, then I'll play. I've been playing a little bit of poker, free poker. I think I'd have an anxiety attack if I was playing for money, which I don't think I would enjoy doing. But I've been enjoying just a craft of poker and just engaging in an activity, some mental stimulation. So, I've been mixing and doing that, and in the evenings, watching a bit of YouTube or allowing myself to do that in a sort of slightly more contained way. There's been some evenings where I've been watching reaction videos late at night, and once that starts, it's hard to stop that. When you're in that, it's hard to kind of come out of it. So I'm trying to be compassionate with myself that it's not happening every evening. So yeah, it's been quite mixed, really. It's I find it really hard to connect, to first of all talk about positive stuff and to connect with that, because things seem to be getting more difficult mentally, which is a reason for me kind of going in hibernation a bit. I think I just needed a complete sort of rest from stuff. Not that outside of that there's a huge sort of social activity going on, but the little that I was doing, that was a huge strain on me, so I kind of even pulled back from that. So the difficulty in reflecting and positives as well, just because of that, the notion of me still feeling very unwell despite being a tad more functional, which it plays mind games a little bit, because then I feel like, okay, I feel like I'm getting better, but I'm not getting better in some ways. So it's really, yeah, it can I find it hard to kind of orient myself in how I'm doing. And sometimes I go on these really crazy thought trains where I thought, okay, I managed to clean the kitchen counters, and then I immediately jump to, well, I probably should be trying to work then. If I can do that, then, and I get very triggered by the work stuff, because then it reveals that there's so much how can I word it, that just because I can do that, it doesn't mean I can do a whole bunch of other things every day or in a fixed routine. And it's very easy to what's the word to use, not grandize, I don't know if that's the right word, but it's like I take that activity, I don't see it for what it is, I almost blow it up and think, okay, and then I think about other areas of my life. Okay, I should be getting myself together then if I can do that, and not realizing still how delicate my health is. That, and I think I mentioned this notion, I can't remember, of walking on a tightrope. I'm not sure if it was I know I mentioned it in a counselling session, but I'm not sure if I mentioned it here in the vlogs. But the notion of walking this tightrope with all the effort I'm doing. So the effort of, the things I eat, which I'll talk about a bit more in a sec, with diet, getting exercise, my sleep habits and sleep routines, reading all the positive activities I'm trying to do, social interactions, another one. And so I'm kind of walking this tightrope where it feels like it can all collapse quite quickly. Like, say if I binge on food, then that will probably affect me not wanting to see people and it will probably affect me not, you know, staying on top of the cleaning here, which I rarely do anyway, but it will impact that further. Again, it just is a huge cascade of negativity there. I probably won't want to write, and that will start snowball for a few days, and I'll have to kind of come out of that, wait for that cycle to finish almost, and come out of it, and then rebuild again. And so there's that whole situation. So I'm trying to be aware of not putting pressure on myself, and not, it sounds probably strange, but not, in a sense, not celebrating the positives, almost subtly acknowledging them, which I think I've talked about before. Again, the subtlety, because I don't want my energy, like the caffeine, I don't want my mental kind of energy going right up here, and then it's such, without much stability up there. It's no problem living life up there, but as long as there's a kind of a stable growing and there's roots just to remain there, so with the ups and downs, it kind of stay in that sort of upper echelon of mood, versus propelling yourself up there, but there's nothing keeping you below, there's nothing keeping you from falling all the way back down. So there's some awareness of that. And even with my writing, I was just in the bathroom this morning brushing my teeth. I was thinking about starting my next novel once I finish submitting this one to an agent. And immediately I could feel a slight strain and pressure. Like, part of my mind wants to get going and wants to be creative, but there's another part of my mind that can't handle the momentum of activity that's happening now. Like, in this past week or two, like, I've probably done really well, more writing than I've done in maybe in years. I don't mean that by like I've suddenly written 5,000 words a day or something, but the productivity has been slightly more and consistent, and that's had a huge effect where it's been so sporadic in previous times. And there was a notion of me starting my new novel. It would just, I don't want this heavy expectation to fall on me. Now I've started another novel thinking, okay, well, I've just done really well of finishing off my old one and written the submission materials, which were really hard to do, and now I'm already starting this new one. You kind of almost, it's like walking on a treadmill and the speed is going up, and the speed is going up naturally because of the momentum, and I know it's dangerous for that to happen. There's kind of side effects to that, like I haven't, in a sense, got the muscles to deal with the speed. So I wonder if maybe a good question to pose is that if I do move into the next novel, is there a way that I can, stay on top of the pressure and expectations, or release that? And one maybe simple way is just to really maybe use mindfulness with that. So, and I think mindfulness, for example, in this treadmill example, it can help slow down the pace. So you can kind of control that a bit better. So with the mindfulness, maybe I can just say, okay, I'm just doing some writing today. You can almost forget the idea of, I finished one novel and I'm working on another, because that thought itself, it creates the pressure of, oh, you've just finished one, you've done another. Maybe you can, keep up this pace or momentum. So maybe I can just, with mindfulness, it's a great way. It just simplifies things. It discards everything and just boils things down to a very clear, light simplicity of just, okay, what's the one thing you're doing now? And you can keep simplifying it as well. You can think, okay, I'm just doing half an hour of writing, or I'm just doing a short session of writing, or okay, I'm just I'm just going to work on, 5 minutes, a few minutes of writing. That's all I'm doing right now, and just having fun with doing it, not worrying about, because the mechanics of writing a novel, it has other pressures and expectations about writing a novel as well, which I'll have to probably work through and deal with, and maybe talk about in future vlogs as that process happens. But just to really simplify things, almost forget about writing a novel, in a sense of entering that kind of project, which can be quite big and heavy, something that I've almost largely escaped the thought process of writing a novel, which can be so big. I think I've naturally in the past just focused on just writing a story that really moves me, inspires me, and it comforts and it's entertaining to write, and just immersed in that, versus, of course the end result would be a novel, but I've not seen it in that way. So yeah, mindfulness might be a good tool to just almost recalibrate myself in this moment, because with the mind, it of course keeps zooming out and generating thoughts of the big picture and things, and maybe the same approach with just with being able to do some activities, like right now there is some dishes in the sink, but generally over the week I've managed to stay on top of some of the cleaning stuff and just keeping things tidy and clean, and I can just keep that as a look at that in a simplistic way as well, that okay, like I haven't done this, I haven't kept this up for 2 weeks, which can seem quite stressful, that okay, I've done it for 2 weeks, when am I going to fail? When it's going to go crazy and collapse? I could think, okay, can I do some cleaning today? Would it would it make me feel better to have stuff cleaned for today? And just stay on this simplistic path of just, I know they use it in like fellowship 12 steps, at one day at a time, and that's a good notion to have. And of course that can be flexible to like 10 minutes at a time, or 5 minutes at a time, or just this one moment. Can I just, either take a breath or just get through this moment and the next moment? And so I find there's quite some flexibility in there. There isn't a heavy mechanism to mindfulness that I found, like in CBT therapy and other things, that immediately become too heavy to engage in. So yesterday I managed to, Sunday I saw one of my family members, and yesterday I saw the other person I see semi-regularly. So it's been a while since I've seen them both, but perhaps it's good to acknowledge that I've sort of engaged and made time to do that, which is a healthy thing for me to do. And I managed to also respond to some messages to friends who, where it's been a week or more where I haven't responded to their messages. So I've managed to do that as well. So yeah, again, maybe it's good just to try and focus on today. When I got up in the morning, I kind of acknowledged me feeling quite drained, and that was probably because of yesterday and the social interaction, and just acknowledging that it despite it being a positive interaction, like it was really nice to connect and spend time with some family, and did some writing there as well. That it's having the effects that it has is constantly changing. Like this morning I was feeling very heavy and drained, and I'm not sure when I'll be able to see people again. With the health ever changing, it's hard just to have a routine and fixed expectations, because it can be very kind of harmful for me to push myself into something that creates more pain and stress or trauma. So going back to simplicity, so sitting up in the morning, just acknowledging how I felt in that moment. I felt okay. I could feel the effects of yesterday. So I was thinking, okay, that's fine. There's some useful questions that came up this morning. Okay, what can I do today that will just help with recovery? And I immediately thought about, the current novel submission material that I'm doing. I thought I could, just maybe working on that would help. Just focusing myself, getting back into my routine that I was doing before. Putting on some music as well, that's been a big thing. I've got like this Bluetooth speaker, and I kind of used that to put on in the background. It's different. I used to always wear headphones constantly when I would listen to any music or watch anything on my laptop, and now I've been for the daytime at least, I used a speaker, and it's a different ambience. I mentioned this before as well. I think there's an ambience to music when it's coming from a speaker. It kind of almost reaches all parts of the area I'm in, so it almost creates a comforting ambience versus having it on your headphones and just here. It can be a bit more a different effect as well. So I find in the evenings I prefer to perhaps have my headphones on, but so I thought what things I could do today is, maybe do a little bit of writing. I think that's the one that came to mind. And, recording a vlog as well. I think for the last couple of days I was always there to try and record a vlog or a podcast episode. So I'm glad I'm able to do that, and I try and get a walk in a park this morning. I can try and maybe upload this. And then come back and maybe do some writing. And it feels good because it does feel it's effort and it's hard for me to do, but it's funny with writing because I still don't know if it's something it sounds really silly to say. I don't know if it's something I enjoy. I don't know what positives I'm getting out of it, but I must be getting something out of it because I'm currently doing it, and I don't think there's a huge negative effect of that. So maybe it's easy to look at it in that way. So again, it's hard for me to see positive things really, but sometimes in a way, in order to see positive, I see the lack of negative to think, okay, it must be good for me then. That's a bit of a gauge. I feel a bit blind or disconnected from, saying something an activity is really fulfilling or meaningful for me. So I feel quite disconnected with that language or looking at, writing in this way. So, and I think it's also good with me probably not overanalyzing that and trying to label it as well, but just think, okay, perhaps it's just some kind of there's some healthy activity, engaging the mind in something, which I think I still haven't read the book fully, but Overcoming the Depression Cure is a book that I wasn't really able to engage in, but some bits of it I still keep with me and remember. I think part of it, the Depression Cure, was as well as getting sunlight and sleep, and another thing was engaging in meaningful activity. So I feel like I'm perhaps doing that in some way. So I did say I'll talk about food a bit more as well. I don't think I have yet. So food's been quite mixed. I had a couple of days where I had pizza, not in a row. I guess I've been having it once a week without it being a routine, like, okay, once a week. So today is Wednesday and I had pizza Thursday. It's funny how I remember that, because pizza's come it's almost the one thing that I'm still, don't know how to describe it really. I guess the one sort of comforting emotional food that I have still is that, and there's other foods I've given up actually, or not. In a sense, I'm not really giving them up. I've just thought, okay, I can't really have those anymore for the time being, at least. And one of those has been crisps, which it probably sounds to some people horrifying, that I usually have like a bag every day with like my sandwiches. They kind of go together. So it's probably been good. I'm sure it's made a big difference not having that each day, and also chocolate, not having that each day as well. The only kind of sugar I'm having at the moment is in drinks like this, or like in porridge. I have something in there, so I think maybe I can kind of get away with that, because I feel like, although I'm pre-diabetic, I don't think it's towards the severe end. I think I'm on the low end, but I'm still. So yeah, I'm trying to. Feels like I've done okay with that, like, because it doesn't feel, with restricting pizza before, like I started getting really big cravings, and it just became a huge mental structure in my mind, almost like I guess addictive sort of withdrawal or patterns in my mind, where there was lots of energy, thinking, oh God, wish I could have that today, but I can't. And with crisps and chocolate, I don't have that as much. I've kind of quickly gotten used to not having it. I'll probably prefer to have them, but I've gotten used to it, I guess. There's not been a huge residue or thoughts thinking, oh yeah, I wish I could have that today. I've just kind of, thankfully, just gotten on with it, and it's not been a big issue. Pizza has, so I've adjusted that in a sense of, okay, if I am to have it, then I can have a smaller amount, or so for example, last Thursday I had like a frozen vegetable pizza, so there wasn't a lot of cheese on there, and it was, one of the lower saturated fats or sort of stuff. And then I've got like these smaller pizzas as well, the kind of mini ones. So I've got, if I was to have a couple of those, it probably would be okay, I think. And again, I'm not sure how much I can control the cravings, because if things collapse, and who's to say that I don't have junk food for a few days in a row, and maybe it's not worth thinking about that. It's just, again, keeping things simple. At the moment, by having that, I don't like have the cravings in between now. So even though it's almost a week, like there's not a huge craving to have it. I've got it in my freezer, and maybe that's enough. That's okay. And then whenever I do want to enjoy and have that, I can, and try and manage the emotional effect of that, which at the moment there's a fear of, once I have it, it's gonna make me want to have it more and more regularly. And so I'm kind of going almost down this tunnel of discovery with this, to see how I can cope and react with food in that way, especially pizza, of course. So that's food stuff as well. Maybe talk a little bit about the unwellness, maybe to finish off this vlog. I think maybe with the current symptoms I've been talking about, like brain fog, memory, and dissociation, and things like that. Of course, there's all the other symptoms of depression and anxiety. I think maybe brain fog and memory are getting more severe. I think that's one of the reasons of the hibernation, really. Things just got more, where I was unable to push myself through to do stuff, because it feels like I've been, especially with social interactions, maybe even for the last several years, I've been pushing myself to try and maintain that, and as time's gone by, it requires more effort to push myself through to do that. And it got to a stage, like the last week, the week or 10 or 12 days or so, where I just didn't have anything left I just had to withdraw. And it feels like I'm still close to that line now, even though I've seen people these last few days and I've reached out to messages, but it feels like I'm still on that tightrope, I guess, where I can suddenly fall off in regards to social interaction, where people won't hear from me for days or a week or so, and I still feel like even now I can feel the fragility and how fragile my health is. And well, I think that's where a tightrope analogy comes really accurately, because somehow I'm staying on it, despite I'm wobbling and I'm constantly there, and who knows if I'll stabilize. I don't know. It's almost fearful and difficult to think about that, so it's best I don't. So yeah, I'm just walking this and continuing going forward. I feel like with the pre-diabetic stuff, thankfully there wasn't a huge reaction. There was some reaction to it, but maybe that's slowly, I wouldn't say stabilized, but because I'm still quite vulnerable with that stuff, but maybe there's a bit of grounding that's happened with it, where I've gone into a bit of an acceptance. Okay, some foods I can't have for the time being. I'm managing that for the most part. But yeah, generally with my sleep and my other symptoms of brain fog and memory, it's still really quite severe, and I'm going to see arrange to make another a doctor's appointment for maybe to see the doctor monthly, I think. Thankfully the doctor kind of suggested asked me, would you like to see me again in a month's time perhaps, and I said that would be really useful, so I can kind of keep the doctor in the loop as well. It's funny, after I've recorded the vlog, maybe it could be minutes or hours later, I thought, oh yeah, I didn't mention all of this stuff, like how did I not mention that? And sometimes in the moment, maybe it's a lot partly to do with the symptoms I was talking about. It's hard to conjure up things and organise things to talk about, but I think I've shared what I wanted to for the time being. Yeah, I can maybe just have a few minutes while I finish this drink, and maybe be good for me to get out to the park to do a few laps and upload this. Maybe some intentions for when I come back to do a bit of writing. Maybe attention to play some poker as well. It's always good to have intentions to add some fun and enjoyment things. So sometimes it can be fun to play a little bit. So I may try and get myself to do that. And at some point I need to figure out what to have for dinner tonight. That's one thing I need to kind of do, and it might be helpful to do that before I go to the park, because if I need anything I can potentially try and go to a shop close by and sort of sort that out. But yeah, and hopefully maybe set the intention to record a bit more regularly when it's needed. I think that would be useful to try and do.